Great, good morning. This is our second Kids Talk since we've been out of meeting in the building and in isolation. So it's Easter Sunday, which most of you should know about, I'd hope, but we're going to have a look at what the Bible has to say about that and what that means for us and for you guys as kids. But writing this talk wasn't easy to carry out. I love writing talks for you guys. But the story of Easter holds so many different things that show God's greatness and show us who Jesus is, that it's quite tricky picking just one thing for a short amount of time to talk to you about. So today we're going to look at Jesus' resurrection, which is just a small bit. So kids, for the rest of today or the rest of this week, why don't you ask your parents about all the other parts of the Easter story and see what they have to say. What happened between last Sunday as we looked at Palm Sunday to Friday as we celebrated Good Friday, and now to today as we look at Easter Sunday. Maybe you could make a timeline or a storyboard of all these things to help you show the order of them and get it straight in your head. Great, so we're going to look at the passage. We're going to look at Luke chapter 24 and verses 1 to 12 to help look at Jesus' resurrection. So this is what it says. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he is risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them, who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened. So, let's have a look at this. How do we know we're alive? I feel like for a picture to help us, I always start with a footballer. So, maybe this. We're moving, we're running, we can slide. That might be how we know we're alive. We can keep active. What about this? A little bit more technical, but we have to have brain activity. Bits of our brain have to be working and talking to each other, and that looks a little like this. What about this? We need to be able to talk. We need to be able to speak to one another to show that we are able to be alive. Or what about this? We need to be able to breathe. We need to have the breath in our lungs to be able to breathe, maybe even to be able to blow up balloons. That could be one way of showing we're alive. Or what about this? This is a heart rate monitor and blood pressure and all different sorts of statistics that are far too complicated for me, but that shows that we're alive. It shows that our heart is still beating. Or what about this? What about a tomb that's got a stone rolled away from it that is empty? Well, this is how we know that Jesus was alive. When we look back at our story, some women had gone to look for Jesus in the tomb. This was his grave, where a dead person would be buried. The women needed to go to sort Jesus' body to cover it with the right perfumes and spices, as had been tradition in those days. But when they arrived at the tomb, this is what they saw. The stone was rolled away, and there was no one guarding its entrance like you would expect. The women stood in awe, but then these 2 men in white appeared to them. And it's what these men say that is so important to our story. Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee? The Son of Man must be delivered again, over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again. So the ladies returned to Jesus' followers and told them. Let's see what happens next. It's a little bit like this. Just have a look at this picture. This is a zoomed in picture of something. What do you think that might be? Have a think. What do you think it might be? Well, it's some toothpicks. Don't know if you're right or not because I can't see you, but what about this one? What do you think that is? I know it's a little bit pixelated, but it's also very zoomed in. It's the tongue. Or what about this one? What do you think this might be? It's a sponge. Okay. What did we want from that? What did I want you to think about when I showed you those pictures? Well, we wanted to see the bigger picture, didn't we? We wanted to see for ourselves what that item was that was so zoomed in. And it's like this, that Peter wanted to go to the tomb. He wanted to see for himself that Jesus was risen, and that's important for us. We need to decide for ourselves whether Jesus is risen, and we need to decide whether he really died and came back to life on Sunday. Why? Because this could be one of the most important decisions you make. More important than choosing whether you do your maths homework, whether you do your phonics sounds, or what chocolate bar you choose from the shop when your mum offers you. Why? Because this decision will impact your whole life. If this story is true, which I very much believe it is, then we can have a relationship with God. Jesus dies and came back to life so that we don't need to be far away from God. All the bad things that we do that separated us from God don't need to be an issue because Jesus died and because he came back to life. We need to be a little like Peter and look for ourselves to see the evidence. And just a note, I don't mean be like Peter and go and have a look for Jesus' tomb, because that would be a very long journey, and I don't think you'd be able to do it while you're in isolation. But look at the Bible, talk to your parents, and find the evidence that you need to see Jesus rising from the dead, and see how important that can be for your lives. Now there is some resources on the website. I hope parents you've been able to get hold of these. They should be up from Saturday from now on, but just use these to help engage your kids in this story and to see how significant it can be for their lives.